December 8th, 1980, New York City, about 10:50 p.m. John Lennon lay dying outside the Dakota apartment building after 4 bullets struck his back, while Yoko Ono screamed his name. Nearly 2,000 miles south at a hacienda in Armenia, Colombia, 31-year-old cocaine trafficker Carlos Lehder heard the news, opened champagne, and called Lennon's death a victory over what he described as the Jewish-controlled decay of American culture. He celebrated it like a national holiday. Carlos Lehder Rivas was not simply another Colombian trafficker. He became the logistical mastermind behind the Medellín Cartel and helped teach Pablo Escobar how to flood the United States with cocaine through small aircraft and a privately controlled Bahamian island. He helped create one of history's largest drug smuggling systems. He was also an open admirer of Adolf Hitler, who founded a neo-fascist movement, praised Hitler, and called America the Jewish enemy of the free world. The film Blow changed him into a charming Latin playboy named Diego Delgado, dressed in white and smiling aboard yachts. It erased the beliefs and violence that made the real man dangerous. Lehder was a German-Colombian car thief who built a cocaine kingdom on a Caribbean island, drove residents away with gunmen and Dobermans, allegedly paid a prime minister $88,000 every month, and was accused of moving more cocaine into America than any trafficker before him. The movie also separated Lehder morally from American partner George Jung, played by Johnny Depp. Yet Jung testified against him in 1994 to reduce his own sentence. Both partners eventually informed. The film presented only the Colombian as the betrayer. Lehder was born September 7, 1949 in Armenia. His father, Wilhelm, was a German engineer who emigrated after World War II. The family denied any Nazi past, although Carlos grew up hearing about German greatness, order, and destiny. His mother, Helena Rivas, was a Colombian teacher. Bilingual, intelligent, and restless, Carlos grew up between 2 cultures. After his parents divorced, Helena took him to Detroit and then New York. By the early 1970s, he was moving stolen cars across state lines and selling marijuana from Queens. In 1973, at 24, he was convicted of automobile theft and sent to the Federal Correctional Institution in Danbury, Connecticut. Danbury became his criminal university. He met George Jacob Jung, a blonde, surfer-like trafficker from Weymouth, Massachusetts, imprisoned for flying marijuana from Mexico to California. Jung understood aircraft and American distribution. Lehder had Colombian contacts, languages, and ambition. For 2 years, they designed a business that would transform cocaine trafficking. Jung explained his Cessna marijuana routes across the Sierra Madre. Lehder asked why they should move bulky marijuana when cocaine was lighter, smaller, and worth about 50 times more per pound. He proposed a network of hubs, spokes, and Bahamian transfer points. Lehder left prison in 1976, and Jung followed months later. Within a year, they carried suitcases of pure Colombian cocaine into small Florida and Georgia airfields, returning with bags of cash. Their first shipment reportedly earned $250,000 and the second $500,000. By 1978, Lehder was making nearly $10 million annually at age 29. He then found Norman's Cay, a 2.5-mile Bahamian island about 210 miles southeast of Miami. It had beaches, a marina, yacht club, homes, and a paved 3,000-foot runway. Lehder saw a private refueling and transfer station between Colombia and Florida, beyond normal customs and Coast Guard attention. Starting in 1978, he bought houses and land with cash, often above market value. Those refusing to sell faced armed Colombian guards, machine guns, loose Dobermans, radar, and anti-aircraft weapons. Residents later told the Senate and DEA that his men raped a Bahamian woman, beat retired American executive Richard Novak, and fired over boats approaching the island. One vacationing family found a body floating face down in the marina. By 1980, most legitimate residents had fled. Norman's Cay became Lehder's kingdom. He built a mansion called Volcano, kept a Rolls-Royce despite having no public roads, brought prostitutes from Medellin, and hosted Pablo Escobar, Jorge Ochoa, and the future Medellin Cartel leadership. Cocaine moved from Colombian jungle laboratories to rural runways, then aboard twin-engine Cessnas to Norman's Cay. Workers divided it for Beechcraft Barons and Piper Senecas, making the roughly 200-mile flight to Florida. They dropped bundles into the Everglades, landed at Georgia strips, or used isolated roads at night. Ground crews loaded station wagons for Miami, Atlanta, and other markets. At its peak, the operation moved an estimated 3 to 4 tons monthly, worth roughly $200 million at 1980 wholesale prices. Lehder charged for every kilogram touching his island. The DEA later estimated his personal fortune at $2 billion to $3 billion. On each month's 22nd day, according to Lehder's pilots and former Bahamian officials, a Cessna arrived in Nassau carrying $88,000 in American cash for Prime Minister Sir Lyndon Pindling. Pindling denied accepting it, but the payments appeared in later commission findings. The money reportedly purchased official inaction. Lehder wanted political influence as well as wealth. By 1981, he had returned to Colombia and financed the Movimiento Latino Nacional, or National Latin Movement. It was openly fascist. His newspaper, Quindio Libre, praised Hitler, attacked Jews, and called the extradition treaty with America a tool of Zionist imperialism. Wearing military-style clothing, he addressed crowds in Quindio as an anti-imperialist nationalist. He told El Tiempo that Hitler was a great warrior. He reportedly called Lennon a degenerate enemy of European civilization and his murder a small justice. Meanwhile, he built community centers, distributed cash, and promoted a Robin Hood image. Some admired him, but many feared him. By 1983, Lehder appeared on the first American extradition request under Colombia's new treaty. He spent 4 years hiding in jungle camps, villages, and cartel safe houses. His drinking, cocaine use, Nazi speeches, and instability made him a liability even to Escobar. Some reports say Escobar disclosed his location, although the claim remains disputed. On February 4, 1987, Colombian police raided a farmhouse near Guane outside Medellin. Lehder was barefoot, unarmed, and surrendered without firing. Within 48 hours, he was flown to America, becoming the first major Colombian trafficker extradited under the treaty. The Reagan administration celebrated it as a major victory. In Jacksonville, Florida, he faced 11 trafficking and conspiracy counts. His trial began in November 1987 and lasted 7.5 months. Prosecutors called pilots, bodyguards, a Bahamian banker, and other insiders. The evidence described one 3.3-ton cocaine shipment, hundreds of millions laundered through Bahamian and Panamanian banks, Dobermans, machine gun towers, intimidation, and disappearances. One pilot said Lehder forced a man to dig his own grave for stealing $20,000 from a shipment. On May 19th, 1988, a jury convicted him on all 11 counts. He received life without parole plus 135 years, then the longest sentence given to a drug trafficker in American history. At 38, he seemed certain to die in prison. Instead, he cooperated. In 1991, America prosecuted Panamanian ruler Manuel Noriega in Miami for accepting cartel money and permitting cocaine shipments through Panama. Prosecutors needed an insider who knew the meetings, bribes, and laundering system. Lehder offered cooperation for a reduced sentence. Testifying in November 1991, he described Panama City meetings, named couriers, and explained the money pipeline. His evidence helped convict Noriega and send him to prison for 40 years. Lehder's life plus 135-year sentence was reduced under terms kept sealed for decades. George Jung made the same calculation in 1994. Facing 60 years in a Cessna cocaine case from Topeka, Kansas, he testified against Lehder in a related proceeding and assisted cases involving the Medellin network. His punishment fell to 20 years. He served about 15 and left prison in 2014. Both traded information for reduced punishment and helped prosecutors pursue former partners. Hollywood presented the blonde American as a tragic everyman while placing betrayal on the foreign trafficker. Lehder entered protective custody inside the federal prison system. His name disappeared from inmate databases and his location became classified. For nearly 3 decades, few officials knew where he was. Reporters met silence and relatives in Colombia and Germany lost contact. In June 2020, without ceremony or an official announcement, Lehder left federal prison after slightly more than 33 years. At 70, he was flown to Germany, where he held citizenship through his father and released in Bonn. He has lived there as a free man. The Bahamas never fully escaped Norman's Cay. A royal commission investigating Pindling in the mid-1980s found large, unexplained payments during Lehder's years there. He was never criminally charged, remained Prime Minister until 1992, and died in 2000. Norman's Cay sat neglected for decades. Volcano was abandoned, weeds broke through the runway, and a plane crashed by Lehder's pilots in 1980 stayed in shallow water near the marina. Tourists now snorkel around it, often unaware of its history. George Jung died in May 2021, 11 months after Lehder's release. In his final years, he discussed blow, signed autographs at true crime events, and complained Hollywood had not paid him fairly. He never publicly acknowledged testifying against Lehder, while the movie remained his public biography. Pablo Escobar was killed on a Medellin rooftop in December 1993. Jorge Ochoa surrendered and served a relatively short Colombian sentence. By the mid-1990s, the Medellín Cartel was gone, replaced by the Cali Cartel, Mexican organizations, and today's fractured networks. The model designed in Danbury survived: hubs, spokes, small aircraft, Caribbean transfer points, and bribed officials in vulnerable nations. Cocaine organizations throughout the Western Hemisphere still use variations of Lehder's blueprint. Hollywood reduced one of the 20th century's most ideological traffickers to a colorful supporting character in an American surfer's redemption story. It erased the swastikas, Hitler speeches, violence and alleged rape on Norman's Cay, the precise $88,000 monthly payments, and Jung's cooperation. The real Carlos Lehder was not merely a playboy in a white suit. He was a fascist with a Cessna who learned American logistics in a Connecticut prison and used them against the country that taught him. After more than 3 decades in custody, he quietly flew to Germany and entered an apartment in Bonn as a free man, while the island he terrorized remained beneath the Caribbean sun. A song Lennon was working on during his final week would never be completed. 2 partners created the system, both eventually informed. One movie changed how the public remembered them. If this story held your attention, subscribe for a new organized crime documentary every week.